Hello everyone, it's me again, and this is going to be my first video game review, and I can't wait to get started with it. I've been playing all these games lately. I just beat the first one, probably like a month ago. I beat the second one, and I beat the third one. So let me do a review about the first one, shall we? Dark Souls. Dark Souls is labeled as one of the hardest games ever, and with its reputation, I do believe it's a really hard game. It just does a lot. There's a lot of hardness when it comes to these games. Like, the enemies are ridiculous depending which version of these games you're playing. Right now I'm playing the Dark Souls Remastered. So let's talk about this one, shall we? Let's start talking about the gameplay. The gameplay is really unique in a sense where you have to wear the right equipment, pick the right weapon. You just gotta pick the right of everything. And don't get me started with the leveling up system. It's like the Matrix. When you first look at it, you're like, I don't understand this at all. And once you play through more games, you will start understanding this system more. The first Dark Souls game that you play, no doubtably, should be probably one of your hardest, because you're getting started with this game and this series. So it gets really difficult because you don't know what to do really. Even with the tutorials, they don't explain that much. They just explain the controls, like how to hit, how to do a power hit, how to walk, how to do all this, when it's like really plain simple when you could just test it out yourself. But it makes sense in the sense that they do a tutorial, but the tutorial doesn't help you. Now, the first boss of the game, it will be hard if you don't know how to play the game. When I replay it, he's actually one of the easiest bosses in the Dark Souls series. But when you first start it, it's pretty difficult. And when you pick your weapon, it always matters of what type of weapon you pick. They could be heavy, so you won't be able to roll past the enemies, but you'll be able to do a lot of damage. Or you want to be able to roll fast, so you pick a lighter weapon, but doesn't do as much damage, so you're going to be not doing that much damage to bosses, enemies, and stuff. But rolling is really, really important when it comes to these games. More so later down the line. Rolling in this game is how you dodge your enemy. Because you can block it, but when they hit your shield really hard, then you're stunned. Rolling is what matters. If you die by the boss, just memorize his moves and then roll past each of his moves. Now with this Dark Souls game, this is one of the easiest. After playing Dark Souls 2 and 3, the boss fights are no joke easy compared to those ones. So I recommend playing Demon Souls or this one first. I skipped Demon Souls and I'm going to go back to it after Dark Souls 3. So, and yeah, that's it with gameplay. The gameplay is unique, and it could be fast-paced or slow-paced. Depending on what boss you fight, it's definitely fast-paced movement. You might not think so, but when you go play the game, you're going to be moving really, really fast around each boss, trying to get some good hits in. And around enemies, trying to get some good hits in. So the gameplay in this game is really unique. I really like it in a sense. They improve it upon it later down the line. But the gameplay in this game is unique for a starting point for if you want to play Dark Souls. So I would get gameplay an 8 out of 10 for Dark Souls. Now, let's start talking about the bosses. Now, I want to start with the bosses first. Mostly because the bosses are the big hitting point for Dark Souls. The bosses are no joke hard in this game. They're not like they're easier than the next installments. But with this type of game, you could play like, let's say, Ratchet and Clank. The bosses are going to be way easier in Ratchet and Clank than this. So the bosses are hard if you start out with it. But if you keep on playing, like if you keep on doing New Game Plus, New Game Plus Plus, the bosses are actually really easy. They don't really like get harder compared to the other two games. But the boss fights are really unique. I will be doing a easiest to hardest boss fight ranking on this channel sometime in the next week or two. And I'm going to do the same thing with every Dark Souls game. But with this, the bosses are hard. They are unique. This is probably one of the most uniquest when it comes to boss fights. Compared to Dark Souls 2, this is definitely beats it in boss fights. Now, with boss fights, you have to have the right equipment on. Like if they have fire, try to get with fire resistance. If they have, like you get fire resistance shield. And you gotta memorize their moves, because each one is different. Roll around them. Do something like that. And sometimes you can stay under them and get some good hits in. And with the boss fights, are so unique because I could memorize every single boss fight after a month of playing this game. Like after when I was done playing it a month ago, I still know all the boss fights. And that's what makes this game so unique, because every boss fight is unique in their own way. They're not recycled. Like recycle means they don't repeat the same bosses over and over again. So this one's really unique in that sense. There's only one boss in this game that I can remember that you had to fight 2 at a time, which is Ornstein and Smog, which is undoubtedly one of the hardest bosses in the game. And it's so unique because you're fighting 2. It's the first one you fight 2 on, and the only one you fight 2 on. When you go to Dark Souls 2, there's multiple bosses that you have to fight 2 bosses at once. And then Dark Souls 3 goes back to the roots of being so unique with the boss fights. Because Dark Souls 3 and Dark Souls 1 are probably the most in common than Dark Souls 2. But Dark Souls Remastered, the boss fights are unique and interesting. They are really fun too. I don't really think I have a least favorite boss in Dark Souls 1. I do have it easiest, but not least funnest. Because every boss is fun in their own way. And once you get in there, they always have an intro of the boss showing up. And it's so cool to see this boss just come right in front of you. And now, you get to fight them, see their moves. It's really unique. If you don't like fighting bosses, Dark Souls is not your thing. Boss fights is undoubtedly the funnest thing about Dark Souls. The levels, not really, but the boss fights, definitely. Now with boss fights, I would definitely, for Dark Souls 1, I would definitely give it a 9 out of 10. Boss fights are very unique in this game, and I definitely recommend this game, just mostly for the boss fights. Now, let's move on with the level designs. Now, the level designs are unique. They're not really not each level is the same. And they don't look the same. Like each level is different in their own way and has their own boss in their own way. And it's really, every level is unique, just like the boss itself. The enemies are unique. The enemies are kind of unique. Some of them are, some of them are not. I think Dark Souls 1 has the weakest enemies in the series that I played so far. I'm going to be playing Demon Souls soon, and I heard that one's the easiest. But the levels, they're alright. They're not the best. There's some hitter levels out there where you love to explore. And then there's some levels you're like, really? I have to do this again? Which is the Hollow and the Poisonous area that's before the Hollow is undoubtedly one of the 2 worst levels in the game. I hate being in those 2 levels, and they're back to back. And those are the levels that I'm like, I don't want to play this anymore. Because once you die, you go straight to the beginning, especially Hollow. And Hollow is one of the worst levels I've played in any Dark Souls game. And I undoubtedly would not recommend it. And it's an optional level, so I wouldn't recommend going there unless you want all the achievements like I did. I got all the trophies for Dark Souls 1 and 2. Now I'm working on Dark Souls 3, getting all the achievements for those, all the trophies. because I play on the PlayStation. But with levels, it's really unique when it comes to the level designs per se. But the villains, the enemies in the levels are not really unique. They're kind of alright. They recycle these enemies throughout the series. And they're a great start here. But with levels, I would rather play Dark Souls 3 when it comes to levels. The levels are hard in Dark Souls 3. Compared to Dark Souls 1, not really. Most of the enemies in this game are really annoying. So, with levels, I would have to say it's 6 out of 10. It's not the best, and I would definitely recommend playing through it if you want to play the other Dark Souls games. So, now this one's an optional one. Not every Dark Souls game has it, especially Dark Souls 2 doesn't. Side quests. Side quests, this is going to be a quick one. Side quests in this game are pretty fun. You go talk to a person at a bonfire or wherever. You talk to this person, and then you could go and find them in different levels and hear their story. And it's really fun. It's not a unique thing, but I had to mention this because Dark Souls does have some side quests. They're not that big though. They are here and there. Once you talk to a person, you go to the next level, you say, hey, I've seen you before. And then you start talking to them again, and it just so on, so on. And then you fight them when they're hollow, most of them. And hollow means that they died. And they became pretty much a zombie. And you have to fight them after that. But they're skilled, and they're pretty... Some of them are pretty hard to take down. And then others don't become hollow, they just die. And you don't see them again. So the side quests in this game are pretty fun. I'm not going to give side quests really a ranking because that won't be fair. I just wanted to mention that the side quests in this game are pretty unique in a sense. But they're not a big part of the game. More like, it's not like RPG type side quests where they will definitely get their own ranking. But side quests, they're pretty good in this game. They're something to get you going, not be distracted towards everything else. Side quests, there's something to keep on going. They're not something to really, you have to do. There's no achievements for side quests. There is some for certain characters, but, you know. So, Dark Souls Remastered. And all three of those rankings put together, I would have to say this game is a 7 out of 10. Yeah. With movies, I do percentages like up to 100. With games, I do it out of 10 because games are unique in that sense, and I will have to give this one a 7 out of 10 because the series gets better overall in the future. So, have you guys played Dark Souls 1 or Dark Souls Remastered at all? Just let me know in the comments below. And I do recommend playing this game if you want to play through all the Dark Souls games. But if you don't, no biggie, you don't have to play this one. Most people are playing Elden Ring right now. I'm playing through all the other Dark Souls games so I could get a hang of Elden Ring. So, let me know what you think down in the comments. And like always, this is Carnation Reviews, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.